Welcome everyone to a new webinar from OpenAIRE, where we'll be looking at the Horizon Europe open science requirements, and we will explore together all those things that you need to do as part of your project. So today we will have three different speakers. So I will be looking at I will be talking about the different requirements in terms of open access to publishing, research data management. We have Gabrielle Leo from the European Commission, who will be talking about Open Research Europe. And we have Maya Dolina Tambane from also from OpenAIRE, who will be telling you all about kiosk EU nodes. A few things to note is that the session is being recorded and will be made, we will send you the link basically in a few days after the webinar. The slides are already online. You can scan this QR code to have access to them. Please use the Q&A section of Zoom, so to ask any of your questions, upvote any questions that you think that people have asked that would be useful for your own interest. And on this, let's go and go ahead with the different aspects of Horizon Europe. So within the slides today, there will be some slides that I will not cover. It will be for your own reference within the PDF, basically. So for instance, this is a link to all the different documents that I cite, that we all cite during the talk. So in terms of open science, as you most probably know, open science is an umbrella term, which is all based on an open cooperative way of working in research and a way of sharing knowledge as early as possible and as widely as possible. So from a European Commission point of view, we have open access to publication, we have the research data management and the FAIR principles, which is something that you usually hear about. There's this specific sentence from the European Commission, which is that the openness to data should be as open as possible, as close as necessary. But I'll go over all these things later on. One specificity is that you should also provide information about outputs, tools, instruments to validate and reuse the results and the data, and also give access to digital and physical access to the results to validate the results of your studies. So let's start with publications. This is one slide that summarizes basically what I'm going to go into more details now. This is for your reference afterwards if you want a snapshot basically of what I'm going to talk about. So the mandate from the European Commission only applies to peer-reviewed publications. It is highly recommended, obviously, from a visibility point of view and an impact of your work point of view, that even if it's not peer-reviewed, to be deposited, to be made open access, so it's really as impactful as possible. But the mandate itself, the compulsory aspect of the mandate is only for peer-reviewed publication. You should deposit one of this peer-reviewed version of your manuscript in what's called a trusted repository. I will go in a second in what those different versions are. And you need to provide immediate open access. So there's no what was called before embargo period. If you were funded by Horizon 2020, for instance, you might remember that you had an embargo period of between 6 to 12 months, depending on your domain. But this is not allowed anymore with Horizon Europe. You must apply a specific license, usually a Creative Commons attribution license. Again, I'm going to go over this in the future slides. And again, I will repeat this sentence quite a few times, but you need to provide information about research outputs, tools, instruments to validate the conclusion of your publication. And as usual, you need to acknowledge the EU, add the acronym and the DOI. I've put in the annotated grammar agreement which article it is, just for reference. So let's look at the different version of your manuscript, so we understand what we are supposed to be doing. So before you submit to a journal or any other publishing platform, this is what we call most of the time a preprint. So it's pre-publication. Once it undergoes this peer-reviewed process, and the final version of your manuscript would be called the author-accepted manuscript. Before it was called postprint, in case you heard about that term. Once it's been copy edited and formatted by the publisher, it becomes a version of record, which is also known as the publisher's version. For reference, this is what I like to call the ugly version and the pretty version. So it's exactly the same content of your research. It's exactly the same content, just the author accepted manuscript, it's their content, and the version of record is made, copy edited, made pretty. So both of those, because they have the same content, because they are both peer reviewed. So after the peer review, you can deposit them on the repository and made open access, and that would be compliant with the European Commission's mandate. So when we talk about depositing on a trusted repository, we talk about this concept of self-archiving. So a repository is a platform, it's an archiving platform that provides free and immediate and permanent access to research. So it's really this long-term preservation of research outputs, the focus of repositories. So anything that is social networking sites like ResearchGate, Academy.edu, they are useful, obviously, but they're not considered as social networking website because they are gated. You have to register. There's no, sorry, there's no guarantee that the content will be kept as is. The publisher's website also does not guarantee that it will be kept long term. And your profile page on an institutional website or your personal website, again, is not repositories. They are all useful, but they're not repositories. And self-archiving is basically you as a researcher, or you ask someone else to deposit a version of your work, so either the author-accepted manuscript or the version of record in a repository. This is one thing that I want to mention is regardless of, sorry, regardless whether you paid or not for open access, so what we call sometimes the gold or green open access, even if you paid to publish in open access in the journal, you should still self-archive a version on a repository. So it's really about where you make it available in open access, not where you publish. So there are different types of trusted repositories. The European Commission talks about certified repositories. There's a whole definition. There is technical, I won't go into that. There's discipline and domain specific that are endorsed by by your research community. And then you have general purpose or institutional repositories. There's a slight challenge right now in terms of which of those repositories are actually it's not just trusted, but also metadata ready repositories. So there's another mandate. I won't go into too much detail because it can become a bit more technical. But currently, there's only 5 really compliant trusted repositories, which is HAL, which is for the if you're in France, AUSDA, which is if you're in Austria. And then there's other 2 that are, so Zenodo is a general one, and there's other 2 are subject specific. So in doubt, what I would say for you in practice is go for something that is really easy. So deposit on Zenodo just to be compliant, and then do that extra step of depositing on something that is, let's say, more useful, more visible within your own community, whether it's your institutional repository or if it's a subject-specific one. Just Zenodo would be to be compliant, and the rest would be to gain more visibility. In terms of the license, the one of the 2 versions of your manuscript needs to be under a CC BY license. So it's a type of open license that tells reusers basically what they cannot do with your work. So there are different ways you can achieve this. So either you publish in a full open access journal, you might have some costs associated with it. So the final version, the version of record, would be under a CC BY license. You can pay to publish in a hybrid venue. Hybrid venues are those traditional subscription-based journals that give this option for paying open access fees, which we will see a bit later in terms of budgets are not covered through the costs are not covered. You are allowed to publish in them, but the costs are not covered by the European Commission. But again, some of them sometimes, just so you're aware, they ask you which license you want to apply, and they would by default tell you the option that isn't the CC BY. So make sure you actually do select that one, because I've seen a lot of researchers make that mistake, and then it's harder once you've signed the contract to actually go back on the license. Or basically publish in a subscription-based journal and then apply what we'll just see in a second, the rights retention statement on the author-accepted manuscript. Just a detail is that when you apply a Creative Commons license, you basically own the rights to your work. So by default, you can deposit it anywhere you want. With some restrictions, obviously, you can republish it. But so if you focus on getting that license applied, then it's much easier to self-archive it wherever you want. There are some times where the author-accepted manuscript and the version of record could have potentially different licenses applied to it. You could have a CC BY license applied to the author-accepted manuscript, and then waive your rights to the version of record. Another thing is that if you're more in the humanities, social sciences, you can apply a more restrictive license to your long-term formats, so monographs. A chapter in an edited book is considered as a journal article, so it wouldn't be eligible for that more restrictive license. This is for reference, but Creative Commons is to remove ambiguity. It is a license, it's a legal framework. It basically tells people what they can and cannot do with your work. The rights retention statement, again, is within the annotated grant agreement. You have this sentence. It's basically something that you add while you're submitting. Really important, you need to submit that sentence to add it while you submit it, the manuscript to the author, and it basically says that any of the author accepted manuscript would automatically be applied a CC BY license. In some cases, you have to be aware that some publishers don't like that and will not accept. And if they don't allow you, basically, if you don't have the funds to pay for open access, or if they don't allow this statement, unfortunately, there can be some cases where you wouldn't be able to publish in that venue. You can check all this on the journal checker tool, which is you would just put my funder would be European Commission, and you put the journal, and it will tell you if it's eligible or not. So this again is just a diagram to visually see. This is for reference also. In terms of budget, I started mentioning it before, publication fees, so what we call usually APC, so article processing charges, or if book processing charges, if we're talking about books, can be covered by the grant if the venue is full open access. If it's not, if it's a hybrid journal, so as I said, those type of subscription-based journals that also have this option of paying APCs, the cost would not be eligible. So you would need to find those funding somewhere else. There's an exception for MSCA, which I will cover a bit later. But just for your information, MSCA don't fall under that rule. They can hybrids. They can cover the fundings from MSCA. And lump sum projects also, because, well, you can basically theoretically use your money as you wish. So theoretically, you could use it. Any printing fees, as always, as with the previous framework, cannot be covered by the grant. So this, again, I'm repeating, but any research output tools, instruments that is needed for confirming the results should be provided also within this the publication. So in terms of open access, these are all the different options that you have usually, but with specifically European Commission, you have, let's say, another solution, which is Open Research Europe. And I will invite now Gabriele from the European Commission to talk about it.
Thank you, Jonathan. Good morning, everybody. I don't know if I have the control.
Yes, you should.
Okay, so I'm Gabriella Leo. I am Policy Officer at the European Commission in the Unit for Open Science and the Research Infrastructure. And today I will introduce you to Open Research Europe, the open access publishing platform of the Commission. So Open Research Europe, first of all, is a publishing platform. It's not a repository. And it's a platform for dataset original research coming out from project funded by the European Commission. It is an optional service offered by the Commission to all the grantees of European Union programs, including and mainly Horizon Europe. It is a service at no cost for researchers, where the researcher can publish during and after the end of their project the main outcomes, the research outcomes of the project. Publishing in ORE allows you to comply automatically with all the Horizon Europe open access requirements that Jonathan just now explained. Open Research Europe is an innovative publishing model initiated by the founders and unlike traditional journals, Open Research Europe use a post-publication open peer review, follow a post-publication open peer review model. This means that you first publish and then the review take place. This allows early and transparent sharing of research results. All articles and reviews are in open access under CC BY license. The publication in ORE ensure high scientific standards and policies for their publication. It is a completely transparent service and publish in all disciplines and also publish different kind of research outcomes. So not only research articles, but also methods, brief, review articles, and so on. When the articles published in ORE are accepted, receive at least 2 positive peer review reports. They are indexed in all the main indexers as Scopus, PubMed, Google Scholar, and so on. Open Research Europe is the publishing platform of the Commission, but it is operated by F1000 through a public procurement of the Commission. Here it is a snapshot of what is ORE now in terms of number of articles submitted and published, in terms of authors, reviewers, institutions that are involved in the publishing in ORE. Sorry. Okay. The Open Research Europe streamlines the model. Is an innovative publication model that streamlines the publication process to ensure that the research is shared quickly and transparently. So as I told before, after the article submission, the article there is a pre-publication check, a rigorous pre-publication check, and after that the articles is published and is assigned a DOI, making the articles soon citable, and also the articles is deposited with the underlying data set in trusted repository, as Zenodo. Important point here is that once the article is published, it cannot be sent to another journal for review and publication, because as I already said, and I wanted to highlight, ORE is not a repository, is a publication platform. After the publication, the article is the article undergoes to the peer review process. This is an open peer review. This means that the reviewer is public the name of the reviewer is public, and all the review reports, all the revision, and all the discussion around this peer review are openly published on the ORE website and are also receive the review report receive a DOI. Once the article receive sufficient positive reviews, it is indexed in database, as I told you before. I think that it's important to remind what are the main point of the pre-publication check. The pre-publication check is very important because it ensures the quality of the papers published. The checks include several aspects. There is the authorship, because at least one of the authors of the paper must be involved in a running or finished EC-funded project. It is checked against the language and readability. It is checked against the guidelines and the policy of Open Research Europe. The pre-publication checks also include a check of the methods to be sure that all the details of methods are provided to allow the quality of the paper be assessed during the review. It is checked for the ethics compliance, and it is checked the data availability, and very important, it is checked against the originality. And Open Research Europe is an efficient, impactful, and stress-free publication model. And I wanted to highlight from this slide just one point. That in Open Research Europe doesn't have a journal impact factor. The quality of and the impact of the papers is measured with the article level metrics and not journals. Okay. Few other point about the open peer review. We can say that the open peer review is a win-win situation for authors and for reviewers. I will not read all this the point that are summarized in this slide, but I think that is important to highlight that it is a win situation for the authors that can have a high quality peer review, a peer review process that reduces the possibility of bias and increase the possibility of collaboration and conversation with the reviewer. And this is a win situation for the reviewers because they can get credit and recognition for their work as a reviewer. The review report get a DOI, so can be cited, is made visible and okay, and citable, and there are also other elements, but I guess that this is very important for reviewers because this with the open peer review process recognize the peer review as an important part of the research process. And one of the last element that important is when you publish in Open Research Europe is that Open Research Europe follow as the same policy of Horizon Europe in terms of research data. So when you publish in Open Research Europe, you have to be to make your data, the data underlying the publication, open and available. So when you submit the articles, you have also to submit a data availability statement, and you have deposit your data in a repository with a license and a persistent identifiers. As for Horizon Europe, also when you publish in Open Research Europe, some exception can be considered for specific situation to the open data. And this is my last slide. I already highlight that Open Research Europe accept different kind of publication, from articles review to study protocols, methods, software tool articles, and research articles in all the Frascati manual scientific fields. And so you can follow ORE online. There is an ORE newsletter, and you can. And my advice is visit the ORE website. Go through the instruction on how to publish, and look at the gateway, and the articles, and the review report that can well explain you how our work and what is the advantage to publish there for researcher. And thank you very much for your attention.
Thanks a lot, Gabriella. So if you have any questions about Open Research Europe, we will have plenty of time at the end, and Gabrielle will also be there. So linked to also one of the things that she mentioned about data, now we are going to go to the Horizon Europe requirements for research data. So in terms of research data, I would it's slightly more complicated because we can't cover everything about what is research data management, what is, so these are principles that you might need to look a bit more into. But in terms of the mandate itself, the principles is that you must manage your data in line with what are called the FAIR principles, which is findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. I'll go in a second into what's the general meaning of this. But this is one of the concepts that you might need to dig more into to understand a bit more. There's a data management plan, which explains basically what you're going to do with your data during the project, which is required by month 6, updated mid-project, and then before the end of the project. You must deposit at least no metadata. So metadata is the data explaining your data. Those README files, the description of what is your data. If possible, the data itself, but at least the metadata as soon as possible after production. So even if it's not related specifically to a publication, any type of data that is produced part of the project should be available. So people should know that it exists, it was produced as part of the project. It also needs to be deposited in a trusted repository, and be deposited openly, following the principle as open as possible, as close as necessary. So the FAIR principles, again, I cannot go into much detail because this is about the mandate. So I would suggest going to any of research support staff, so any data stewards, any librarian, any people that can help you with the data processing. But it's basically principles that, for instance, assigning persistent identifiers, so those um, um, fixed URL, for instance, that are called DOI, attaching a clear license to your data, making sure that it's available on a trusted repository, having a README file. All those kind of principles are what forms the FAIR principles. A data management plan is, and this is probably the most important thing about the DMP, is that it's a living document. So living in the sense that every time you have some changes about how you are producing or doing things about your data in the project, it should be updated. In practice, I know that it's, it takes time to do so, but at least do it, let's say every 6 months, make sure that the DMP is updated and not just at mid-project. It's good. You will have save time if you do that progressively rather than before the end of the project. So as I said, it's a living document that specifies how your research data will be handled both during and also after the research project. So it's not just how you handle the data, between partners, but also how it will be shared with the world afterwards. So it's about identifying strategies that to ensure that your data is impactful, but also safeguarded if it needs to be, and accessible and reusable. The issue with the DMP is that there are no absolute right answers. I cannot provide you. Don't ask people, write me a DMP. What's, a template like with already written answers, because it will be specific to a project. There is a template from the European Commission, but this is just an outline of formatting the DMP, but it's not giving you answers on how to write it. The important is to be as clear, specific, and detailed as possible. It's basically to explain to the funder that you've reflected on how you're going to approach, the data management aspects. There are some specificities in the sense that your data can be closed in some cases. As I said, the metadata should also always be available. And this case is, there's mostly 3 cases, is if there's a commercial value to your research. The EC is very clear about that. If there is commercial value, you should definitely make use of it, creating intellectual property rights on it. So these can be a reason for it. Obviously, any data protection, GDPR privacy rules, sensitive data, obviously you cannot share everything. And anything related to security rules, dealing with strategic assets of or security of the EU. With COVID-19 pandemic, there's a specific rule that was added for public emergencies. I won't go into details, but it just changes. This is a slide for reference, but it changes a few things about it. One thing is that it doesn't apply to ERC projects. So a few useful tools, and we'll start with a quite recently new one, which Maya will talk about.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. So my name is Maya Dolinar, and my role is to be a user engagement and EOSC liaison at OpenAIRE. So today I'm going to briefly explain to you how the EOSQ Node initiatives enables open science by basically providing access to research data, services, and computing resources. And this platform plays a crucial and critical role in helping researchers comply with open science and fair data principles, as we will see. So let me change to the next slide. Okay. So what is the EOSQ node? This is a key infrastructure for open science in Europe. It is a federated platform that enables researchers to access and also share publicly funded research outputs across disciplines. It supports open science principles such as we've seen, fair data, open access, reproducibility, and the platform is built and operated by a consortium of research institutions that ensure compliance with Horizon Europe open science policies as well. So who is it for? Let me change. Okay, it's a bit of a lag, so sorry. So EOSQ node is basically open to a broad audience. While it is highly beneficial for Horizon Europe projects, of course, it's not limited to them. It's open basically to anyone. It is accessible to all researchers, academic institutions, citizen scientists, and other public initiatives. The platform is free to use and it's supported by European Commission funding, and it has a credit-based system which ensures fair allocation of computing and data resources. So depending on the role you have within your organization, for example, if you have a researcher status, then you get automatically the highest amount of credits available. Okay. Why would you use the EOSQ node for Horizon Europe? Horizon Europe, as we have seen, places a strong emphasis on open science, and the EOSQ node provides the necessary infrastructure to support this. It basically simplifies compliance with European Commission requirements, enhances transparency, and improves the overall impact of research. So the EOSQ node fosters interdisciplinarity and seamless collaboration by enabling researchers to share files securely via the service called File Sync and Share, for example. Researchers can also develop and deploy applications through the Tools Hub using ready-to-use cloud deployment recipes. And they can also create and share interactive notebooks that leverage the high-performance computing and storage resources, which basically ensures efficient teamwork and knowledge exchange across disciplines. The EOSQ node empowers researchers by providing access to a vast repository of over 140 million research resources. This is made available for the Resource Hub that enables seamless discovery and reuse of data, publications, and software. And here researchers can also leverage the Tools Hub to easily deploy application over cloud resources. They can also utilize 6 specialized services, as we will see in a bit later on, which are there to enable data processing and analysis. And they can also access personalized research environment via the user space. And throughout their journey, they can also receive comprehensive support through the help desk, FAQs, documentation, and training resources that will soon be available. And this basically ensures them a smooth and efficient research experience. So the Resource Hub is a core feature of the EU node. It's available without login. So if you go to the website of the EOSQ node and click on the tab Resource Hub, you are free to explore the hub and the resources available. It's in this Resource Hub basically aggregates research outputs from multiple European sources. It includes indexed resources, publications, datasets, and software, and all other possible research outputs. Researchers can also use the hub, of course, to discover new datasets and integrate them into their work. And this feature basically significantly enhances collaboration and data reuse, which is, as we have seen, a key principle of open science. So the available resources. EOSQ node offers currently 6 services to streamline research workflows. We have File Sync and Share service, which is there to basically seamlessly share files across locations and teams, and it builds basically on collaboration. Then we have interactive notebooks, which is there to create and share documents with real-time code execution. We have a large file transfer service, basically to securely transfer large files. We have virtual machines, where you can use compute resources to launch your own virtual machine to create, for for example, an isolated environment for experimenting with different configurations, software setups, or algorithms. And the compute resources, of course, can also be used to create reproducible research environments, which is quite important to do. Then we have a cloud container platform, which is there for deploying applications that can easily scale, and the bulk data transfer service, which is there for moving large amounts of data securely and effortlessly. So the user space provides you, once you log in, you enter the user space, and this provides you basically a personalized dashboard where you can access the Tools Hub and the 6 services we just talked about. And you can also manage the credits that you have allocated, and of course the groups. You can also create groups here and invite your project team to collaborate within the platform together. This user space integrates tools for data storage, analysis, and sharing, and it basically makes it a central workspace for researchers using the EOSQ Node services. The EOSQ Node supports basically all stages of the research data lifecycle, from data collection to publication and reuse. Here on the left, we see a few examples of how EOSQ Node can support you in the first 3 phases of the research data lifecycle. For example, a Horizon Europe project could browse the resource hub and find existing datasets to reuse, which then would reduce the duplication of effort. Then the research team could use virtual machines to store and pre-process some big data, such as satellite images before analysis. Or like a bioinformatics, researchers could process genomic data in a secure cloud-based Jupyter notebook without basically the need for setting up local infrastructure. So then in the next phase of the research data lifecycle, we have a few more examples. For example, in the data publishing and sharing, it would be advisable that all the results from the projects, the Horizon Europe projects, should find basically their way at the end and be visible in the resource hub of the EOSQ node. This is not a requirement per se. It's not formal, but it's just like some sort of, I would say a best practice for the future now that we have the EOSQ node to be sure that that you take care of the fact that you then publish your resources in the data in the repositories that will be then included in the resource hub at the end. You can read all of these use cases and go more into details after the meeting. I will not go into all of this explanation here. So the EOSQ node basically, as you can see, can effectively integrate into a research proposal by supporting key aspects of the research lifecycle. Firstly, you could mention the EOSQ hub, EOSQ node, in the data management plans as a resource for data storage, sharing, and processing. And that would basically ensure compliance with the Horizon Europe Open Science requirements. Researchers can also apply EOSQ node tools and services throughout the research lifecycle, so basically from data collection to analysis and publication, which would then enhance collaboration and efficiency. Additionally, it can also help you ensure compliance with open science mandates, as its federated infrastructure aligns with the FAIR data principles, making research outputs more accessible and reusable. And finally, you can also reference it in dissemination and impact plans, and demonstrating how the projects will use the EOSQ node to maximize visibility, accessibility, and basically long-term sustainability of research outputs. So how to get started with the EOSQ node? This is really simple. Just visit this web page of the EOSQ node, and then you can explore the resource hub, as I said, without login, and see all the available resources. Once you sign in using your institutional credential, you can explore all the available tools and services. You use groups and use your credits to basically use the tools and services. And of course, integrate your research workflows in Horizon Europe proposals. And this process basically ensures that researchers can really fully leverage the EOSQ node's capabilities in their work. So that's all from my side. If you have any questions, we will answer them later. And if you want to contact me and get more insights, you can also do that. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Did you give me? Yes. Yeah,
Yes.
thank you. Yes, thanks a lot, Maya. If you have any questions about the EOSCI node, Maya will be there, so please do add your questions in the Q&A. Just a couple more tools that might be useful, which is similar to some extent to the hub that you saw, is OpenAIRE Explore, which is basically, let's call it search engine to find nearly everything related to research, whether it's from data, publication, softwares, organization, anything related to this. There's a lot of text. This is just for reference to read afterwards. Amnesia is a really useful tool if you're dealing with personal data or sensitive data, which allows you to anonymize data before publishing it. And then Argos is a tool that allows you to help you in the process of writing a DMP. So it already has the template from the European Commission. You can also download the document from the European Commission, but this might be a tool also that can help you. It won't write you the DMP, but it can help you in the process in structuring it. So a couple of things on reporting and monitoring, because I think it's worth knowing in advance before you get, or maybe you're at a stage where you are doing the reporting and monitoring. So there's different structured reporting. So there's some more automatized reporting that is done, especially in terms of the publications and the data sets that are in archives. And then you have free text reporting about the different open science practices that you did. And this is obviously, as with everything, reviewed by the project officers. So on the participant portal, you have it's a continuous reporting. You have, for instance, the publication tab, which basically lists anything that is related to your project. So if you correctly put the DOI, so this unique URL, it will be automatically appearing normally in the portal. If it's not, then you can always add it. There's a few couple of things here that's the type of PID is, as I said, usually it's the DOI. It's this unique URL that I've been talking about. So then you have a few different things. So you have the PID of the deposited publication, which is where you've deposited the publication in where you've self-archived it. Then the PID of what's called the publisher version of records, which is where the place it was published, on the journal's website, let's say. And then if any APCs were, you paid any APCs. So this is for the European Commission to track how much is being spent in terms of the APCs. Datasets, exactly the same thing. It will appear automatically, but you can import through the DOI. And then you have two tabs that might look a bit confusing, but again, I linked to Open Science, which is the results, and then of the results. So the results tab is focused on let's say the content really of the results. So any discoveries, any theories, products, services, methods that are really linked to the research. And other results is for reporting anything that is created as part of the process. So any software, workflows, protocols, prototypes, anything that is linked to the project that is, let's say, well, it's not a byproduct, but let's call it a byproduct of the project. You would put it in that. And this is more free text type of reporting. Okay, I won't go into too much detail, but I thought it would be interesting if you are still applying for grants, for Horizon Europe grants, to be aware of a couple of things when you are applying for a grant. One thing that Gabrielle already mentioned is that there's no impact factor with Open Research Europe. And this is something, for instance, that you need to be aware on when you're applying for the grants. So again, this is for reference, all the different open science parts. So this is for Horizon Europe project, not for ERC or MSCA. In terms of publications, where you're mentioning your publication, all your publication you're citing should be available in open access, so on a trusted repository. If it's not, then you have to somehow make it available in open access so that people can, the reviewers can actually have access to it. Very important thing, as Gabrielle said, and as I will insist, it will only be evaluated qualitatively. So whatever the impact factor of the journal in which the article was published is relevant for the European Commission projects. It is about the quality of the content. So really focus on publication that you know will be a good representation for your project. In terms of the research data, it is the same. It's slightly harder because you might not be that familiar yet with this concept of FAIR principles, but the data you list that you mentioned in the grant proposal should be following the FAIR principle and available on a trusted repository, have a persistent identifier, this unique URL or the DOI usually. At that stage, in the grant proposal stage, you don't need an official DMP, but I argue that there are so many, you need to basically say things like the type and size of data, which persistent identifier you're going to use, IPR and all these kind of things. That it's kind of like a mini DMP that so it's good to already think about as if it was a small DMP. And then anyway, that will help when you actually write the DMP before month 6. One thing I forgot to mention, actually, when you write your DMP, don't wait until the last few weeks. By experience, a lot of researchers came to us and saying, "Oh, can you help us? It's in 3 days." No, the MP is more, you have to give some thought about it. So start as early as possible, especially if you're in a big consortium, you need to agree on things. So start as early as early as possible to get feedback from the different people from the consortium agreements, but also get help from the different people in your institution that can help you. There's a distinct work package for project management that is needed also. Remember that in your grant proposal, and this is something people forget, you can add a lot of things in the grant proposal, whether it's about engagement with citizen science, crowdsourcing activities, data creation costs. So you can have a data steward, for instance, allocated to the project. You just need to include it in the project. Remember, again, that article processing charges for hybrid journals are not eligible. So the basic writing tip is be as specific as possible. Make it easy as possible for the officer to find all this information. And you do not need to explain what open access, fair data, open science is. I think this slide is more relevant for the reporting, not for this. Sorry, that's the wrong placement in the talk. Just a couple of special cases, which is ERC and MSCA. With the ERC, there's no explicit evaluation of open science, but obviously if you include it, as with everything nowadays, is we want it to be more visible, more fair, more transparent. It will positively impact your the scientific excellence part of your grant proposal. And again, there's something about work packages. I won't go into this. And for MSCA, there's a specific structure into how open science is integrated within it. There's no, so again, I'll leave, if you're concerned with MSCA, I will leave you read that. The important aspect which was changed a year ago is that there's no cost eligibility rule for APC, so you are allowed to cover APC cost even in a hybrid journal for MSCA. There are a lot of other open science recommended practices, which I've listed here, and I will not cover because there's a lot of other open science practices. But do bear in mind that all those open science recommended practices are not mandatory, so you will not score less for not taking them into account, but your evaluation can only be improved. Your score can only be improved if you include them. So there's pre-registration, there's preprints, which is slightly different for open research here because there's no this concept of preprint anymore because it's the concept of preprint doesn't exist in this case, in this publishing model. Public engagement, citizen science, and others. So in terms of an overall idea of the tips, do design from the beginning, from your grant agreement, or if you're already in grant proposal, sorry, and even if you're still in the middle, to sit down and create an open science strategy, whether it's about publication, about data management. Make sure that everyone is in agreement within the consortium, that everything is clear to everyone. Seek help, basically, from the different people within your institution. Obviously, these webinars are useful to get an overview, but the people on the ground will be able to help you more in depth on how to do things practically in your institutions. And yeah, don't be scared of reporting keeping track of issues, reporting them, because it's not about being perfect about everything, it's about being transparent. So for instance, if something happened that change about your data, that's okay. You explain why you're making those changes and explain the process, So there's no right or wrong answers, as I mentioned before. So just keep track and don't be transparent about all those changes. If you would like, we organize this webinar 3 times a year. The next one will be in July for reference. And you can scan this QR code if you would like to receive any invitations from future OpenAIRE training events. So you can give your name, email, and then specify which topics you're interested in. We'll put it in the chat also. But yes, this is for all of us. And now let's have some time for some questions. Where are my questions? Here.
If you want, I can read them. So there is already one answered question by Maya, but I'm starting reading the first one. How does the European Commission define peer-reviewed publication in case of conference articles? Sometimes only the submitted abstract go through peer review, and the full article published online is not peer-reviewed anymore. Sometimes the paper is reviewed, but only by the conference committee. So it's not the same as blind peer review in journals.
It's a good question. I don't have maybe my colleagues have a definitive answer. I would say it's more for gray area, because there's a difference between official peer-reviewed and then a committee peer-reviewed, because when you do a conference, it's there's no like this peer review process of back and forth. It's more like, does it go to the conference or not? So I wouldn't call it official peer review, and therefore I don't see it as it would fall under the mandate. However, in doubt, just make it available, because you could the project, or you could ask the project officer also. That's another thing, whether they consider it as peer-reviewed or not. But in doubt, I would always just consider it as peer-reviewed and just make it available in open access. I don't know if my colleagues have a different opinion on that, but I do agree that it is a bit of a confusing definition, and that's not from the European Commission, but from in general, what is considered as peer-reviewed or not.
Thank you, Jonathan. Here are questions about ORE. With monograph, there is a little option to publish in open access. What do we do? ORE does not accept them, for example. I think that we can speak with the F1000 to make it explicit, the possibility of publishing a monograph. And because there are different kind of example, like research articles that have no limits in length, and also the possibility to publish essay in Open Research Europe. But we can also tell to our colleagues to make it explicit. What do you think, Gabriella?
So monographs are not among the publication, the kind of publication accepted for ORE, and I don't think that for the moment will be accepted, and so I don't have a specific answer on this. I will discuss again. So we will discuss internally, but for the moment it's like that.
Okay. Another question is, where do you put the RRS in the manuscript after the acknowledgements?
Yeah, so you put it within the main text of the. I guess it depends on the publisher and how you submit it, but either you have. I don't know all the different types of publishers. I must admit on how they do it, the publishing, the submission process, but either there's you add it as an extra also when you submit it as a text, but you need to put it in the main manuscript to make it sure that they know that it's there. So put it in the main manuscript, and then it will be removed anyway in the as the final peer-reviewed version, as the author-accepted manuscript or version of records. Just make it visible to the publisher.
Thanks, Jonathan. Another question is, are the publications in ORE indexed in Web of Science, Clarivate Analytics?
The reply is no, not yet. F1000 is discussing with Web of Science to understand why Web of Science didn't find all the requirement of its requirement fulfilled by IORE, but for the moment, no.
I smile because we always have this question in every single webinar.
Yes, I know.
Well, at least if the people have the interest or the need, it's indexed in Scopus. So we have this kind of indexation. Another question that we have is how do we report on a working paper which is openly available on a website, but has not been peer reviewed? Does it also have to be deposited in a repository?
So there's two things. If we talk about the reporting, yes, you should, maybe I should have mentioned that. In the reporting, you should mention everything, whether it's peer-reviewed or not. Everything that you've contributed to any news article that you've produced. From a mandate point of view, no, because it hasn't been peer-reviewed, and the mandate only applies to peer-reviewed aspects, manuscripts. However, as I said in the beginning of the talk, it is highly recommended for visibility and impact of your research to put it in a repository to make it visible and citable and everything. So it's not mandatory by the European Commission, but from your own interest as a researcher, yes, I would highly recommend it doing it.
Okay. Another questions regarding conference contributions, open access, and reporting. Here, our person who is asking the question is a librarian, and this can be a little bit confusing for the researchers. If I understand correctly, a talk or poster presentation without a subsequent published conference article should be reported only as dissemination. Full article in Proceedings Journal or book should be reported as publication. And if it's fully peer-reviewed, then open access requirement applies. Are extended abstract or just abstracts a publication, or do we just report the talk as dissemination? If there is a full paper, both the conference series only publishes the proceedings on a website, not an official publication channel with an ISBN or ISSN, is still reported as publications, and do we open access requirements apply? Such a website usually don't have the necessary metadata such as PID of published version. It's a little bit long.
Yes, sorry, I'm reading. Okay, so sorry. Because
So
I'm
basically,
more visual, I need to reread part of it. If there's a full paper that was only published at the proceedings on website. But if there's a full paper, then it exists. And if it has been peer reviewed, if it's a full peer reviewed paper, then and it's on a website, it doesn't matter whether it's a publisher or not. It's been, let's say, published in some way, whether it's by a publisher or through a conference. So if it is, if it has been peer reviewed, then it falls under, and then you do need to put it on a repository. If it's a full paper that hasn't been peer reviewed, then you don't have to, but it is still recommended. But as you mentioned, this is on the proceedings on a website, and the website, as a reminder, is not an archive. So whether you want to, whether it falls under the mandate or not, my opinion is, and it's the European Commission opinion also, is that you should always self-archive your work on a repository, because what if this conference proceeding website disappears? Because who is to say that they will continue having the money and will keep the website forever? As repository has this role to long-term preservation. So for the interest of the researcher, they should deposit any type of work on a repository. These slides, for instance, this talk, are deposited on a repository to make sure that people have access to them in the future. So that if for any reason, for instance, the OpenAIRE website was to disappear, let's hope not, but the slides will still be there. Whereas if we only put the OpenAIRE our slides on the OpenAIRE website, who knows what would happen? This is the concept of the repository. I hope this is what the question is. But yes, if it's...
It's also about considering a conference proceeding part of publication or as a dissemination. This is also the main confusion that some researchers may have.
I cannot comment as much on that aspect because I'm not an expert on that dissemination part of the grant agreements. So I don't want to make a mistake on that. My answer is, if it's from a mandate point of view, if there might be some overlap between dissemination, and there's some overlap between dissemination and the open science mandates. So anything that is, you know, news articles and this kind of things would obviously be in dissemination. But, you know, from an open science point of view, you might still want to publish them in self-archive them for long-term preservation, for instance. Yeah, I hope that answers more or less the...
Yes. Let's go for the next question. For our publications to appear in Scopus, you need at least 2 positive referrals. What if there are 3 negative ones?
So the procedure is that if the article has received at least 2 approved status, status, and or 1 approved and 2 approved with the reservation, the articles is indexed. So this means that this is the minimum requirement to be indexed. And after the articles will be also deposited in Zenodo automatically. So even if there are 3 negative, the 2 positive allow the articles to be published. I don't know if this never happened, because it's very difficult to get 5 different reviews. But
so what is recommended in general as open science, let's say, philosophy that is behind ORE, is that you will publish, so the researchers have to resubmit a paper with correction, and then it goes again to the peer review. Once the article is accepted by the peer review after the correction and everything, then it will appear in Scopus. Otherwise, it's still on preprint, and usually the preprint are not considered as a fully peer review article. But what ORE is showing is all the workflow that is behind being transparent in publishing your research?
I am not sure I have understood this question.
So basically what they were asking is why if a publication is not approved by the peer reviewers,
So
this publication is not showed
when
in an index.
It is
the articles, when you submit an articles to ORE, first of all, there is the pre-publications check. That is an editorial and ethical check. If this is, if the article passes this check that is made by the editorial board, so no check on the content apart if the method gives enough details to allow the assessment. The article is published on the ORE portal, and that's all. And it is assigned the DOI and is there. Then it goes for the peer review process. When the paper receive 2 positive peer review or 1 positive and 2 with reserve, then the paper is indexed. But the articles published in on the ORE platform is there forever with its DOI. So the peer review allows only to the articles to be indexed, and so can be found, can be recognized, and everything related to the indexation. Okay, to be in Google in Web of Science, not okay, in Scopus, in PubMed, etc. But after the pre-publication check, the article is published on the website and is there forever with this DOI. So is uniquely identified.
I think
I don't know if this is the reply to the question.
Yes.
The review report is open, is public, and not only the review, but all the discussion that can be done around that review report. Because the report asks something to the authors can submit a revision version of the articles, and all the versions are available on the website, on the portal, and all the versions are available for all the community, and together with all the review report.
Thank you, Gabriella. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. I think the confusion that most people will have that you're all are attending is that you're used to a specific way of doing the reviewing process, the publishing process, which Open Research Europe is different. It's, let's call it, a new approach to publishing. So as I mentioned also, this concept of preprint doesn't really exist anymore because it is immediately published. The difference is that it will be published and then it will be reviewing, and it's different versions. You'll have version 1, which is the main one. The reviewers will send it. It will be the edited version will be version 2. So you keep track of all the different versions until there's the publication. But when you search on Open Research Europe, you will find all those different published that have not been don't know how to, but accepted for being indexed yet. You will find all of them. It's just a difference that with normal publishing, it takes so much time for between you submit for it to actually be visible. With Open Research Europe, it's a different model of how to publish, which makes your research much more visible, much quicker. And I want to, so I'm seeing actually the first four, the most upvoted questions, which are all talking about the impact of publication, and I think this is linked. So the impact of our publication. So which are the parameters that perhaps measure the positive impact of those publications? There's another questions about the metrics used by ORE. There's a question about the seriousness. How do you, is ORE considered as serious in the equal to publishing highly ranked journals? What you need to remember is that we are shifting the way we are assessing researchers. The European Commission and a lot of funders are shifting from measuring researchers as just numbers to the quality of the actual research that they've done. So instead of you've published in whatever, in Nature, in Science, this, is this impact factor. When you apply to the European Commission to EC grants, they won't measure that. They will measure the actual content. And so what ORE does also is, but it's optional, obviously, but what ORE does also is that it makes your work visible immediately. So instead of having to wait, 6 months to a year to 2 years for your work to go through the peer reviewing process and for your work to actually have an impact, to be seen and cited, because you can already cite it as soon as it is published. It might not have been accepted through those two reviewers, but it's still citable. You can still see it. So the impact of your research is much higher, much faster. So we are in a transition phase. You have to, unfortunately, this is, the reality. It will be a bit harder for you right now because we are in a transition period where we are changing the old-fashioned way of assessing research and researchers. And in a few years, the European Commission has done a lot of work on that, but a lot of other funders also have done a lot of work on that to push back on this.
And on this,
Yeah.
Jonathan, is important the work performed by COARA, the Coalition for Research Assessment, initiated by the Commission, but now in the hand of the funders and the research performing organization, university, there is more than, I think, 600, 700 signatures of this agreement. And altogether, these funders are working to overcome this system of evaluation system for researcher based on the bibliometric indicators to go towards an evaluation more qualitative, where the importance is the quality of the research, and the quality of the research is also related on how much the research is shared and can be reused. So ORE is, when we talk about ORE, we have also to put ORE in this context. So ORE cannot work alone. ORE is part of this big movement towards a reform of research assessment. And the Commission think that to have a journal impact factor, the journal impact factors shouldn't be anymore the way to evaluate the research. And what we think is that the quality of the papers published in ORE will be evaluated, by the number of citations, but also by each researcher reading the paper, reading the review reports that are public. And this really gives an idea not only an idea, more than an idea of what is the quality of the research. So it's a different system, but if every researcher check if it's is a organization signed ORE, and maybe they can go to the hierarchy and say, okay, why you still continue to evaluate us based on the journal impact factor. Okay, and this is my personal.
I fully agreed on.
It's not the commission position.
No, but I think it's aligned with what the commission. And on this, just because it's the time, I'm aware that there are some questions that got upvoted quite a lot that didn't get answered. There is a Q&A that just give me a week to answer them, but we will answer the Q&A of all those questions that we didn't manage to answer. And you also have the Q&A for all the previous webinars that we did, so questions from the previous webinars. And on this, I'd like to thank you again a lot, Gabriella and Maya for speaking, and Julia for being there to support. And if you have any doubts or questions in the future, don't hesitate to ask us at the help desk at openair.eu. And thanks a lot for being here today, and I wish you a lovely afternoon or morning or night, wherever you are. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Goodbye.